Previously on the RimWorld Continental Army series, we had a massive tribal raid coming our way from 3 different sections of the territory, in what is commonly referred to as a deadly 3-way. Hey, how's it hanging, folks? It's your Rat Daddy here, and we are back with the RimWorld Continental Army, and we are indeed taking on a deadly 3-way of tribes people raiding us. Effective immediately, we are bombarding the absolute shit out of the raiders that we could see from the front of our base with cannons and mortars and everything that we had. This is the old tried and true method of hitting them with something really hard, really fast. Works every time. However, at a certain point, the tribes people got a little upset with us bombing the absolute shit out of them with cannons and mortars, so they began attacking us. Now, I was really thanking myself for building these new defenses last episode, like our slate doors on our entrance that we could shut, lock, and hide inside. Now, you might call that cowardly, but look at this massive raid. I call it survival of the fittest, baby. I was very thankful for our traps as well, because one of the groups of tribes people began to flee after they flung themselves on top of many of our wooden spike traps. Meaning now we only have to deal with 2 massive tribal raids. As the raid from the east approached, we began firing our mortars at them, but we weren't very accurate, unfortunately. So of course we would send our entire army out to the front gates to fight off the onslaught that was coming from the east as well as the south. The battle was very, very chaotic, though not all of them of course came to our front gates to fight. Some of them began banging on our outer walls, which once again I am very proud of myself for reinforcing. Well, before this video becomes one big love letter to myself, we have a battle to win, or possibly lose. I will say that I have the utmost faith in our military. I'm just a little bit scared because there are so many enemies, but luckily at a certain point we had killed enough of them that a second group of tribes people had began fleeing and we only had 1 left. However, with this third group approaching, we were becoming a bit overwhelmed still, and many of our soldiers were injured, so we began to retreat within our fortress where we would then shut the gates. Which damn near almost did not happen because of a rifle and some pemmican blocking the doorways, but luckily we managed to fight off the tribes people coming through and slam the doors shut on them, which very well was a massive turning point in the battle. And this was a great idea because after running inside, these tribes people would also hit our traps just outside, and we were desperately running out of traps. But this was enough to make them flee as well, and we had finally defeated the massive triple threat tribal raid. Without one single American casualty, I might add as well. Now, that isn't to say that this was easy at all. This may have been one of the toughest raids I've ever fought in RimWorld, I'm not going to lie. It took a long time to plan out exactly how to go about doing this. Plenty of pausing throughout the battle to try and plan things out, but we did manage it. And at the end of the day, we had massive piles of tribal corpses, and just as well plenty of fires to try and put out that had occurred during the course of the battle. Luckily, it did begin raining at one point, which saved us a lot of effort. One of our American soldiers though was down and out inside one of the burning towers, but luckily he was saved as well, and we did manage to get that fire out. We have managed to avoid any casualties from the battle thus far, but unfortunately we still have the risk of infection for our wounded. But the hardest part is over, and even though we could all get infections and die, or get dysentery and die, or get the flu and die, you know, I don't know, hopefully it won't happen. But no matter. Even if some of us were to die, every man is going to die at some point, and our remaining sons and daughters will carry on our mission of liberating this planet and bringing freedom to its inhabitants. You know, except for the poor fools that we captured after the battle. No, there's no freedom for them. Unless they want to be our friends. Like, you know, friends in one way or another. Speaking of our friends, our current friends, the Continental Army, are going batshit crazy from having to haul all the dead bodies and clean the blood off the battlefield and, you know, all that fun stuff. But unfortunately, somebody has to do it. We can't leave them just lying around the entrance of our fortress. What would the French think of us? They would be very disappointed. Plus, if we leave rotting corpses around our doors, we may end up getting lung rot, which is no bueno. Something that would also be no bueno is not fixing back our spike traps, because with all of our soldiers injured and whatnot, if we were to have another raid right now, we would be, hey, let's build some more showers. That sounds like a fun idea. Not only a fun idea, but a clean one as well, because if our soldiers are nice and clean, they won't be getting near as many infections, and they will also boost their mood to take some hot showers, preferably together. Something that should also help with boosting the morale and moods of our soldiers would be a nice, big, gaping sauna room where they could all get hot and sweaty and relax. Luckily, we were able to build 2 fueled sauna heaters. That way we don't have to use any electricity. The devil's magic! And just like that, our massive bathhouse is now a massive sauna and it is ready to go. Just in time, I might add, because it is now winter time. This is the very first snow of the season and also of this entire series. I am quite thankful that we worked on hand wrappings and boots in the previous episode, because now the majority of our soldiers do already have those and they should be fine for winter. Just as well, I am also extremely thankful for all of the food that we stockpile throughout spring and summer, especially our pumpkins, because we get a massive harvest yield from those. And of course, I assume our lads and lasses will be eating pumpkin soup all winter long. Things are going so well, winter is beautiful, nothing could go wrong for us. Hey, wait a minute, what's... Oh my dear God. The bullfrogs. They've finally come for us. After all these episodes of slaughtering them, he's here. The Frog King has arrived. And with his arrival, lightning strikes the ground. Thunder shakes the earth. He's a monster. And with him, he brings his dastardly little toads, as well as 2 toad men of sorts as well. We shall show these acid-spitting, leather-skinned bastards no mercy on the battlefield. Lucky enough for us, many of their bullfrogs would actually hit our wooden spike traps, killing them before they could even make their way towards us. We immediately began opening fire on the Frog King and his disgusting subjects. After killing several of his frogs, he and his companions began to flee. Yes, run, you slimy cowards. Run back to the shithole swamp where you belong. We had better never catch you or any of your disgusting ass bullfrogs in our territory again, or you know what, anywhere on the planet, as a matter of fact. If we come into contact with you again, you are dead. But hey, speaking of dead, that raid did provide us with plenty of dead bullfrogs. Dead bullfrogs that we could chop up and fry them in a pan and make, frog legs, and we could eat them. Not that food was really a big concern to us right now, but the more food the better, of course. Now in other news, once again we have began expanding to the eastern section of our territory. We are once again expanding our massive walls of our fortification to try and suck in more land so we can build more stuff. Now this time around, the land isn't going to be used for farming. We're not building any more grand bathhouses or anything like that. This time around, we're actually going to be building the White House. I know, the White House. It's crazy, I hear you. I hear you ask yourself, Rat Knight, why would you be building the White House? Well, my friends, we are going to begin holding some elections soon so we can have a president. And I feel that this is an exact carbon copy of the White House, which is the perfect abode for our president. I mean, truly, look at this. Can you even tell which is which? No, you cannot. Exactly, because they are freaking identical. I know, I'm good. You don't have to tell me. However, if you did want to leave a comment saying that, the algorithm might like it. That's all I'm going to say. A little bit of time later, it was finally time for us to begin harvesting our coffee plants, which was absolutely perfect. We harvest all our little coffee beans and started taking them into our food storage room, where we would then actually begin producing them into coffee. Now look, I get it. You probably think that I'm overhyping this coffee stuff, and maybe I am just a tad, but take a look at this. It really is quite useful. As you can see, after the soldier takes a sip of coffee, he ends up having 110% in consciousness, manipulation, talking, and eating, which makes him not only faster, but a better shot, better worker. But speaking of a better shot, we recently had a comment on our last video from our good friend Jonathan Miller 6381, who is actually saying that we should create kind of a special class of sharpshooters along with our militia and our just normal Continental Army soldiers, and I totally agree with you, Jonathan. Thank you very much for that. However, in my opinion, these soldiers are going to need their own attire. Not only that, but we need something that makes them unique. So I decided to give them their very own slouch hats, except for the commander, who has a feathered hat. I gave them the Baker rifle because I couldn't find anything on the workshop for Kentucky rifles or any New England rifles, anything like that, but the Baker rifle has a much better range and accuracy. Just as well, I also gave them some webbing and some new backpacks. But you know, in my head I thought this just is not unique enough. They do look different than our average soldiers, but it's not enough. So I decided to give them some facial hair and some different hair colors to really help distinguish them from our average soldiers. And now I will also admit that, you know, if the beards, the hair colors, the new rifles, and all that great stuff wasn't enough to tickle your little fancy, the entire back row here of soldiers, well, just 5 soldiers of course, actually have names that you guys put in the comments section of the last video. Now, a bit of a disclaimer though, even though I love when you guys comment that stuff and everything, I'm not going to be able to name each individual soldier, a name that somebody leaves in the comments section. If you like to leave a name, there is a possibility that I might end up doing that if it really catches my eye, but I'm just not going to be able to do that every single time, unfortunately. Now, I did end up naming the commanding officer of our Sharpshooters, Jonathan, after you, Jonathan Miller, the one who has left the comment, so thank you ever so much for that. You will forever be with us here as their commanding officer, you know, assuming you don't die anytime soon. Now, as we wrap up the episode, I decided to build a great big road around our White House, around the fortification. That way we can ensure proper mobility, then all that great shit I'm always yapping about. Basically just meaning we don't have to step over any trees or bushes or anything like that. And finally, before we end here today, I do want to mention that I have added a mod that everyone has been requesting that I add ever since, well, not even this series, previous series as well, but especially with this one I've seen a lot of comments about it. I have added the factional war mod to the mod list, and you can always find the mod list in the video description of each video of any series, but this series as well, of course. If somebody wants to kind of give me a rundown in the comment section as to exactly how the factional war mod works, I'd really appreciate it. I think I kind of have a basic understanding. The factions are going to be at war, and I can take part in that if I want to and attack them, and basically stuff like that. But if somebody wants to give me a more detailed explanation, I'd really appreciate that. But without further ado, people, I am ending this episode, and I'll see you in the next one. I love you. A super big special thanks to my patrons who make this video as well as every single video on this channel possible. I could not do it without you guys, and of course if you're not a patron, I still love you, but if you would like to support me on Patreon, there is a link in the video description as well as the channel bio. And of course, if you were able to support me on Patreon, that would mean a lot to me, and not only that, you would actually be financially supporting me and the channel and just all the stuff that I make and the stuff that you love to see me make and things like that. Of course, I may end up adding some new tiers before too long. I might do one where you guys can have your names put into like a list where we actually name our colonists after you guys. Maybe some other stuff for voice acting, or we'll see what comes around. But I love you guys ever so much. I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.